Hey guys, Richard Holdner here and welcome to the channel. Here's the question. What's the difference between a $500 Junkyard 360 Magnum and a $5,500 MOPAR Performance Crate Magnum? What do you get for the extra $5,000? Let's get ready to rumble! In this video, we're going to take a look at two different motors. One is a Junkyard 5.9 liter Magnum. The other is a MOPAR Performance Crate 5.9 liter Magnum. What happens when we let them slug it out? Who makes more power? Let's find out. To get things started, let's run the Junkyard motor. So here's what you can expect if you go to the junkyard and pick up one of these Dodge 360 5.9 liter Magnum engines. Obviously it's fuel injected. It's got the kegger intake manifold on it and the dual hole throttle body. It's got the stock 360 cylinder heads and the mild cam. And now this camshaft is the same cam that it shares with the 300 horsepower version of the, high dollar $5,000 or $6,000 crate motor from MOPAR Performance. So it's not surprising that they might, we're thinking that they might make comparable power. But on the Junkyard motor, we put it up on the dyno, ran it with a Holley HP management system. The other option, obviously, if you had a Junkyard motor, you could put the same kind of induction on it or an even less expensive induction system on it. If you wanted to run it carbureted, you could put a dual plane intake manifold from Speedmaster or from Edelbrock. You could put any of these induction systems on an inexpensive brawler carburetor like we use with the MOPAR Performance Crate motor, an MSD or other type of distributor, because this is a mild motor. You don't have to get elaborate on the cost of those things, but it would easily do the same thing. So if we take a look at our fuel injected version, we ran from the Junkyard 288 horsepower, 386 foot-pounds run with stock exhaust manifolds. When we were doing the testing on this, we obviously ran through a series. We put long tube headers on it. You can see long tube headers picked it up quite a bit. Made a little over 300 horsepower and almost 400 foot-pounds. On this application, we also ran, we ran a little bit of nitrous. Ran a little more nitrous. And then a little more nitrous. And you can see from the video clip that when we ran nitrous on this thing, we didn't do it terribly scientifically or maybe terribly effectively either. We were just injecting the nitrous. I made a plate or a support to put the fogger nozzle basically up above the throttle body. And on this one, when we ran the nitrous, we injected the extra fuel through the injector, so we were just spraying the nitrous into the motor, but it worked pretty good. But that's really not what this video is about. The video is more about a comparison between a very cheap and inexpensive $500 or $600 Junkyard motor, and actually you might be able to get them even less expensive than that, because a lot of times with the local wrecking yards here, you have 40 or 50% off sale weekends. So a lot of times these motors can be had for, a couple $100, which is a really good deal. So now let's take a look at what happened when we ran the 360 MOPAR Performance Crate motor. And then after that, we can get to a comparison between the two. Now let's toss on that crate motor. Way back in the day when Westech first got this 360 MOPAR Performance Crate motor, these things were easily, this thing, the way it ran on the dyno, I'm sure would be $5-6 grand. So a lot more than obviously going to the junkyard and picking up a motor. And so let's take a look and see all the things that we did with this motor, and then we can get to a comparison between the two. We ran this thing with a dual plane MOPAR Performance M1, the dual plane intake that came with the crate motor. We put a Brawler 750 carburetor on it, long tube header, or this is actually with stock exhaust manifolds, the smaller versions. And we obviously dialed everything with an MSD distributor for the timing. 291 horsepower, 390 foot-pounds of torque. This thing, we went through a series of tests just like we did with the Junkyard motor. We ran some bigger exhaust manifolds on it. Picked up a little bit of power. Ran some long tube headers, just like with the Junkyard motor, picked up quite a bit of power. On the crate motor, we even stepped up to a different camshaft. So you can see we were up near 350 horsepower eventually, 417 foot-pounds of torque. But I want to take a look at a comparison between basically the stock output of the MOPAR Performance crate motor and just the Junkyard motor that you get for, basically a tenth of the price. I mean, we're looking at, $500 or $600 versus $5,000 or $6,000. So it's a big difference in cost between the two. So now let's take a look and see. We'll do the direct comparison, dun dun dun, between the $5,000 or $6,000 motor and the $500 or $600 motor. Now that we've taken a stroll down memory lane with both of our 360 Dodge Magnum motors, the Junkyard version, the $500 or $600 version, and the MOPAR Performance crate motor, which would be the $5,000 or $6,000 version. Here is what we've all been waiting for. Let's do a direct comparison between the two. With the Junkyard motor, we ran it with the Kager intake manifold and ran it fuel injected with long tube headers. And obviously we optimized the air, fuel, and timing and everything. We got 300 horsepower and 399 foot-pounds of torque. Now here's what happened when we ran the MOPAR Performance crate motor in the same trim. Well, not in the same trim. We ran it the way that it comes from them. So we ran it with the dual plane intake manifold. We put a 750 Brawler carburetor on it, had an MSD distributor. So we ran it carbureted. Here's what happened. Excuse me, here's a comparison between the two. So here's what you can expect for your extra $5,000 to $5,500. It makes the same power. So run in carbureted trim, the MOPAR Performance crate motor made almost exactly the same power as your average Junkyard motor ran fuel injected. Now obviously we can get into a discussion, oh yeah, but it took a lot more to run the fuel injected motor, could have took a standalone management system. Really, you could run the fuel injected motor with the factory fuel injection at this level. You'd have to get obviously the computer and the harness with that, but that's inexpensive. The other option that you could do is you could get your Junkyard motor, take off the Kager intake manifold, and put an inexpensive dual plane carbureted intake just like the one from MOPAR Performance, although I would not recommend the MOPAR Performance intake manifold. They're hard to find and they're very expensive. There's a lot better choices out there. The Speedmaster version, the Edelbrock version, you could obviously drill and tap the heads to accept any of the various LA intake manifolds, and that would be another way to go if you wanted to put a little bit of extra effort into it. You could get a factory 4-barrel LA intake manifold and maybe a thermoquad from the wrecking yard and do your manifold or do your MOPAR Performance piece up like that. But this goes to show you that, and it's not surprising really, if we take a look at the specs on the MOPAR Performance crate motor, it's basically a brand new version of a Junkyard Magnum motor. Now, there obviously are a lot of benefits to having the crate motor over the Junkyard motor. One is that you have a brand new motor, and so it should last longer. You also don't have to worry about when you take it apart that you snap the bolts off like these. I'll show you. And this is what happened on the Junkyard motor. And obviously there's all sorts of grease and grime and debris and all stuff that you have to deal with. And also you have no idea on the Junkyard motor what kind of condition it is in when you buy it. So you're taking a chance and you don't know how long it's going to last because you don't know how well the people treated the motor that you're getting out of the wrecking yard. You don't know how often the oil was changed and how serviced it was. There are a lot of unknowns. That's one thing about buying the MOPAR Performance crate motor or any kind of crate motor is that you're getting a new motor, and so that you know that you're starting with something that's in good condition and you know that you can take care of it. But it's a lot more expensive. Let's get to our conclusion. Okay guys, what do we learn in our comparison between our cheap Junkyard 5.9 liter 360 Dodge Magnum motor and its more expensive equivalent from MOPAR Performance, the crate motor? Well, we learned this. They make the same power. That's right, if you run both of these motors under the conditions that we ran on the dyno, they make the same power. So why should you spend the extra $5 grand on a crate motor? Well, first of all, and we talked about this a little bit, it's new, it's brand new, and it has the cool valve covers. But you can also put that on your junkyard motor. So that's why I always go to the junkyard and grab the cheapest, dirtiest, rattiest motor I can, because it makes good power. Armature holder, make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Check out all the MOPAR videos I have up. Thanks for watching.